Welcome to the Advance Your Art podcast, where we talk about the journey from artist to entrepreneur and everything in between. You've worked hard to hone your craft. Now take it to the next level with tips, techniques, strategies, and routines used by successful artists to grow their businesses and careers. Now, let's get started and have some fun with your host, Yuri Cataldo.
TWYLA, hello. How are you today?
I'm good, thank you.
Excellent. So where are you calling from?
I'm calling from suburban Kansas City, Missouri.
Wonderful. How are things in Kansas City right now?
Pretty good, pretty calm.
Yeah, that's good. Calm is good. I've been there once before. I love Kansas City. I'm from the Midwest originally, and Kansas City is a fantastic place to visit. Love the barbecue.
One of the meccas of the area with a lot of history, which I have put into my book.
Fantastic. Before we get into that, how do you describe yourself and what you do?
I am an independent scholar and a publisher. I am an energy historian scholar, energy transition historian, I should say.
Mm-hmm.
And I have identified a body of knowledge that has not been explored, and that is fuel and energy transitions. And I've been writing about them, studying them, and more wonderful information comes up all the time. I draw more conclusions, more parallels. I would love to see this become a body of knowledge that people study.
Mm-hmm. Fantastic. What got you interested in this topic?
You know, I went back to graduate school in 2001 with the idea of looking at changes of fuel, because Kansas City is a pioneer town. Starting in 1820, it has a very clear beginning, a very rapid growth and change. And I thought, I just want to look at that. And then out of that fell the realization that fuel and energy are the background for all of this, and because the change was so rapid, it was wonderful to record. Mm-hmm. And since then, I've just drawn broader and broader conclusions.
Okay, wonderful. So you describe yourself also as a writer as well. So what, with this research you've been doing, what made you want to start writing books?
Gosh, I started writing books when I was 7, and I remember doing that with black colored paper, stapler, crayons. I mean, this is all I've ever done, really.
Yeah. Oh, that's good. And then so you expanded from there. So let's talk about your first book before we go into the details. What was your first book about, and what was the process like in the very beginning of writing your first book?
Well, I'll talk about my first environmental book.
Sure.
I've written others before that were other subjects, but the first environmental book was Call of the Rainbow Warrior, an environmental fable, which came out in 1990. And it was the story of a monkey in South America who lost its home because of the burning of the rainforest. And there was a man in Oregon who was a lumber baron who had a direct pipeline to that. And so we were looking at the long-term connections and the consequence of cutting down the rainforest. Mm-hmm. And then the spiritual figure was the Rainbow Warrior, who said when the earth is sick and the animals disappear, warriors of the rainbow will come to clean the earth and heal the earth and the sky. So that was that message. I put that out. And then 3M, the company in Minnesota, gave us a grant, and we turned it into a play, and we performed that 2 years, and so it got some splash. It was fun.
Yeah.
And then after that, I went into nonfiction of ideas about how to heal the earth, stop the pollution. That's what I've been doing since 1990.
Mm-hmm. Wonderful. And I think it's fantastic that you turned your first book into a play. That's great. Is there of the two you're doing so far, do you prefer writing like your first version of the parable, or do you prefer the nonfiction area, which you've seemed to go down a lot more further now.
I do much better in nonfiction.
Okay.
And it's so rich. And I've struck this vein of fuel and energy transitions that's just begging to be described and studied. And I enjoy it very much.
Okay, wonderful. All right, well, let's dig into your current book, Fueling Change, the Once and Future Kansas City, Once City's Love Affair with Wood, Coal, and Gasoline. Helps if I can read properly.
Yeah.
So what made you want to write this book, and what is this book about?
Well, first of all, I'm going to say that we've brought out a new edition with a different subtitle. The one, the Kansas City one last year, and then we decided to broaden the scope. And so that subtitle is How We Created Climate Change, One Fuel at a Time. Gotcha. It's the same book with a different introduction, but it has a broader appeal. And so it made me want to write that book. That was originally my doctoral thesis. After 6 years of graduate school, I came in with the idea of looking at energy transitions, and then I wanted to get it down to street level. So these are real stories about how the Kansas City population was impacted by wood, and then swiftly moving to coal, and then swiftly moving to oil, and now coming up to the next fuel change, which has to be out of fossil fuels and into renewables. And we don't want to go there because we don't know what that looks like. And yet these are the big wheels of machinery that turn our history. And one of the conclusions I made was history is simpler than we think. It's all about fuel all the time. So no matter what else we do, we're dictated to by fuel, and most particularly gasoline, because it is the sculptress of our ways and means. So having identified gasoline, I have then really looked at how it impacts us. And now I'm all about gasoline all the time.
Excellent. Okay, so let's talk about that. So how has gasoline impacted us, and how do we wean ourselves off of the need for gasoline?
Boy, that's a toughie. There are many ways into that question, but let me say that gasoline is the biggest source of pollution that we have. Each of us pollutes a couple of tons of carbon dioxide a year from burning gasoline. It's a very carefully kept secret. I was in part 4 of my book before I uncovered this staggering statistic that every gallon we burn leaves behind 20 pounds of carbon dioxide. So we have been absolutely, we are addicted to gasoline because it organizes our life. We can't get along without it, and that is not by accident. The oil companies, the car companies have created this way of life for us, and we don't realize that we're polluting our way to global warming as fast as we can get there through gasoline. So every car that's running is leaving a couple of tons of carbon dioxide every year. That's astounding. And if you have a car, you need to take your car keys in your hand and realize that you cannot keep doing this. This is our way out of global warming. This is the connection between global warming and the coronavirus, in that we as drivers and polluters of gasoline have created the huge furlough, so to speak, that the coronavirus has given us, so that we can stop and look and say, wow, look what we've done. And then we can stop driving and stay away from polluting more. It's our way out of global warming, period.
I see. So you're making a connection to, like, right now, because there are less cars on the street, there are less people driving. We can see how the current pandemic has basically, sequestered us all in our homes, driving less. We can kind of see how changes are actually happening. Okay.
Yeah, the good news about the bad news is that the great gift of coronavirus is the fact that our streets are empty. Our towns are still intact. We didn't destroy them with guns and tanks. We just stopped. It was a voluntary thing. I mean, it's an enormous gift. It's so big we can't see it. And so if your audience is women, they can take a hold of this and say, okay, this is my way out of global warming. This is the future for my children, because if we do not resume driving, we will not keep pouring tons. Each one of us is putting tons of carbon dioxide into the atmosphere. Do we want to do this? No, we don't want to live there. And we can't keep doing that. We are not going to get into the 21st century, for instance, until we stop burning fossil fuels. Once we do that, then we can enter into the 21st century burning something other than fossil fuels and get out of destroying our planet.
So let's dig into that a little bit. I mean, obviously, as a society, we're not going to stop traveling, and there are alternatives to fossil fuels that have come out. Electric cars being one of them, and they have their limitations. But beyond that, though, how do you propose, I guess, we as a society move forward if we are to burn less gasoline and take advantage of alternative means of transportation?
First of all, we have the infrastructure already in place. It's the electronic highway. We need to realize that this is our future and stop using the term go back. We cannot go back. We can go forward, and we can get out of these old ways of communicating face to face. We have to. We are so close to going over the edge in global warming into a temperature that will melt the two ice shields, the two poles. We are so close. We simply cannot go any farther. They say it takes longer than you think it will, and it happens faster than you thought it would. This is where we are with global warming. We're right on the edge, and we can't go there. We don't want to be on a planet where the ice poles have melted. Use the polar bear as the poster child for this. And then there's nowhere to take the planet and say, please fix the refrigeration. There's no fixer for that. We have to backpedal. We have to stop right here. And I think women will understand that, because they don't want their kids to go there. They don't want themselves to go there. This is the way out. And we can do it without shedding blood, tanks, helicopters, so forth. We can just choose. Each person who has car keys can say, okay, I'm not doing this anymore. I'm either going to drive electric or I'm going to work electric, whatever it takes.
So with the electric car, what about some of the limitations in electric cars?
Yeah.
For example, like the fact that there's not as many. I mean, again, let's get that part. I know batteries are still something that are being developed. Tesla's done a very good job, and I think you can get like 350 miles to one. But to the average person, that maybe not as far as they would like to go. Electric cars are also expensive. Is there a way that you see where the cost is going to come down? There's a way for, let's say, more of the average person who doesn't want to spend a lot of money on a vehicle that they may not use as often could take advantage of this type of opportunity?
I don't want to encourage people to exchange the gas-powered car for an electric car and go sit in traffic again. That's not where we're going. That's the 20th century. We, for those who must have a car, use a hybrid. But the rest of us, let's use the electronic highway. We've got to be able to figure out how to do that. That's the gift. That's the challenge, all wrapped up into one. Is we don't all run out there and buy hybrids. There aren't that many, and they're not going. It's a bridge kind of technology. And there are 4 phases of a revolution, and hybrid is the second phase, where we begin to change out of the status quo into hybrid, and then we have to get up to 50% of electricity being used in less polluting ways. We get to 50%, then we're fully into hybrid, and then a little bit more, and then we're into the new age. Does that make sense?
Yes,
right
that makes
now,
more sense.
We're only at 11 or 12%. So we've got 40% to go, and we just have to drop our car keys and begin to think of other ways to make the world work.
Okay. So you've used the term